What's a fact that was taught in school that's been disproven in your lifetime? Before we start with the first story, please hit subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. That while being on your period, you'll only lose 1 spoon of blood. That's such a BS. Also, the average pad can absorb 5 milliliters of blood. I've always thought that was nonsense, and then I learned that scientists tested pad absolution using water until this year. I believe that was also debunked. I'm having trouble finding the info again, but IRC, the claim that companies were using water came about because the recipes for the fluids menstrual product companies use to test absorbency are generally trade secrets and not something you can easily find, so some bad assumptions were made. Story 2. Strangers will give me free drugs on street corners and in Halloween candy. As an ex-drug addict, I can confirm I have been given tons of free pills, fentanyl, and other drugs from strangers on street corners. A lot of people I used to hang around usually did not like to use alone, mainly methylmeo, and so offering to give others some of your crap was an easy way to feel less alone and less ashamed. I legit remember joking with a ton of others under a bridge high as chaos about how our teachers were not lying when they said we could be offered drugs on the street. I just never imagined myself to eventually turn into one of those people. Story 3. I learned tongue taste maps at school. Turns out it's complete nonsense. I am a university professor. After the Great Recession of 7-9, monetary policy changed quite significantly. The change was made permanent around 2009. Our economic textbooks, despite numerous revisions, finally updated in 2021. The high school AP exam was updated in 2022. In 2010, I was the only university professor teaching the new monetary policy. Other universities and publishers hired me to speak to their people on how to teach it. I still received requests this year. It takes an obscene amount of time for education to evolve. Even at the university level, where we have no bureaucracy and are free to do what we want. Edit, no bureaucracy in the context of textbook choice or how we teach in the classroom. Outside of that, universities are as bad as governments. Story 4. In pharmacy school around the turn of the century, we were taught that people in legitimate pain don't get addicted to opiates and opioids. Same. But they've gone so far in the other direction it's absurd. My husband had surgery, and the day after discharge from the hospital, he had to call in and basically beg for a 3rd pill to help with the pain. On the phone, the nurse was like, "This really sounds like your husband just wants pain meds." And I'm like, "Of course he wants pain relief? He's in a lot of pain." Then I got this spiel about addiction, so I asked if they thought he'd formed an addiction in 3 days. I really think that discussions regarding post-op pain management ought to be part of the informed consent conversations they have before surgery. There shouldn't be any surprises when everything goes as expected. Story 5. I once asked one of my elementary school teachers what a rainbow was, and she told me scientists hadn't figured it out. I walked around until my early 20s thinking that. Also, I think it was this same teacher who told me Columbus thought the Earth was flat. They were training teachers in a different kind of way in the 70s and 80s. It's honestly one of the reasons I'm thankful for the internet. Because depending on your teacher, or an outdated encyclopedia for answers, could be a real roll of the dice. I remember being told that only Columbus thought the Earth was round, and literally everyone else in Europe thought it was flat. And that's why he couldn't get funding at first to explore, because everyone thought he was going to fall off the side of the Earth. Turns out, that's so wrong, it's not even funny. Story 6. Not my lifetime, but my mom's sister was initially forced to write with her right hand, despite being left-handed. Since they went to Catholic school, it was taught as fact that being left-handed was something devil. When my aunt started grade 1, my great-grandfather died a couple weeks into the school year and bequeathed some money to the church and school. The family would not give it to them unless my aunt was allowed to be left-handed. Amazingly enough, the priest, upon prayer and reflection, determined that being left-handed wasn't a problem anymore. Isn't that something? That's how my now 78-year-old aunt changed science at Blessed Sacrament when she was 5 years old. Story 7. The food pyramid. About a year ago, I went to a specialist for a shoulder problem. Their answer: "You are fat." The only thing the doctor would talk about was my weight. Don't get me wrong, yes, I am obese and currently working on it. 10 lbs down this month, and my obesity is 100% a self-inflicted issue. But it has nothing to do with my shoulder problem. The doctor said that if I ate healthy, exercised, and lost weight, my shoulder would feel better. She told me to start slow, and she knows it's hard, but try walking for just 5 minutes a day to start. Look at my Fitbit, I got 14,000 steps today at work. I'm here because my shoulder hurts when I'm working out. Then she handed me a pamphlet about nutrition, which had the old school food pyramid, and suggested my diet be composed of mostly grains and carbohydrates, and made no mention of CI company. Story 8. No one is going to wait for you to look up information in the real world. You have to know. It has to be the most insane thing I ever heard. That never made sense to me even before everyone had the internet in their pocket. In one of my in English classes, we were constantly writing essays without being allowed to consult the books we'd been assigned. This was to prepare us for the final state exam, in which we'd be given an essay prompt, which was to remain a mystery until they actually handed us the exam, and would not be allowed any outside material to bring with us. I always wondered, do they expect us to memorize every detail of every book we've ever read in order to write one essay for this one dumbass exam? Story 9. Once you get to high school, nobody will accept papers not written in cursive. Elementary teachers think high school is like signing up for basic military training, I swear. My grade 8 teacher told me that high school wouldn't let me use pencils, use the bathroom during class, fail me if I'm a minute late for class, not let me talk to my friends in the halls, etc. It's like they watched a Hollywood high school movie and thought it was real. This was what my grade school teachers said about middle school. If you turn in an assignment in middle school not written in cursive, they'll give you a 0 without looking. Then when I got to middle school, the first day every single teacher I had declared some variation of, I will give you a 0 if you submit an assignment in cursive. I am here to teach you, not decipher your hieroglyphs. Story 10. When I was a kid, I skipped school because I misunderstood the schedule and decided, I've gone to school enough this year. 5th grade me planned out the day my parents would be gone early, then just slept in, ignoring my sister trying to wake me up. An hour after classes started, I woke up, watched some TV, then my dad came home and dragged me to school. The school had no detention, but my dad wanted some form of punishment. He asked them to make me help the janitor for the last week of school. A week later, I'm asking if I can work as a janitor instead of going to school. Things came full circle last year. After suffering through customer service nightmares for 6 years, I got a cleaning job that pays way better without the customer nonsense. Only requirement was some training I got on the job. So yeah, screw our job shaming culture. The only fake job is one where you're not getting paid. Story 11. All fat was bad for you, thus fat-free foods became a thing for a while. It's tragic. One of the only things humanity's science has managed to really firmly establish about the long-term effects of diet on health is this: high glycemic load is bad for heart health. We know low-fat diets are typically higher glycemic load. I think that the people responsible for pushing this myth on the public are possibly responsible for more loss of life than any other group of individuals in history. There is a lot of bad, misunderstood science regarding food, well, all areas of science, but especially food. I don't even think of it as things taught in school that are wrong, so much as things that food industries intentionally mislead people on. Like the whole advertising, quick, we need something good and healthy sounding to say about this food. It may have a bunch of unimpressive nutritional values across the board, but out of those calcium is the least unimpressive, almost reasonable. And the advertisers will put on the box, a great source of calcium. And after a few generations of people seeing that claim on every box, there's a general assumption that calcium is hard to get unless you are including this one thing in your diet, and that belief is exactly what some food industry wants you to believe. So they continue to fund studies who know their only job is to keep that belief alive. This has led to a lot of people not having a clue about nutrition. They can't make heads or tails out of real studies and paid to validate our specific claim studies, so they just keep believing whatever they believe. Story 12. The whole meteorite killed the dinosaurs thing wasn't yet the accepted theory when I was a kid. Came here to say this: an asteroid impact was one of several theories, but no one knew of an impact crater that would be a likely candidate. The Chicxulub crater actually appeared on maps of gravitational and magnetic anomalies as early as the 1940s, but most of the research was property of the Mexican state-owned oil company and kept under wraps. It wasn't until the 1970s that it was discovered by oil company researchers. And it wasn't until the 1980s that research was published, and largely overlooked and ignored, identifying the impact crater as a potential culprit. Research resumed in the 90s, and it wasn't until 2010 that the Chicxulub impactor was accepted as the reason for the extinction. Disclaimer: I'm not a geologist, just a huge nerd. Anyone more knowledgeable with better information, feel free to correct me. There's a documentary on Netflix, or at least it was a few years ago, detailing a recent expedition where a drilling ship drilled into the crater for further research. One of my best buddies growing up was on that expedition, and was interviewed for the documentary. I was living vicariously through his Instagram story while he was on that ship. Story 13. Your permanent record will follow you into adulthood. I found this out when I transferred districts before I started 9th grade. The new district didn't have any of the classes my old district had placed me in for 9th. Let me clarify that, they did, but they were for seniors and advanced seniors, and I could not get into them at grade 9. So I basically repeated middle school and high school and stopped giving any crap. They looked over my previous schooling file, classes and teachers and grades, very average overall. Not outstanding, but not noteworthy either. And said in my meeting after testing into the school, LOL, that I cheated. These records are false, sent directly from my old district to them, but yay false. And I would be taking these classes, but I got to choose my elective. I chose orchestra again. They had a class named that, but it was not. You got forced into a new instrument and into the marching band. And that's how I started concurrent enrollment at the local community college, and got my HS diploma and my bachelor's within a week of each other, before 18. I made them regret doing that to me. I even ended up teaching one of the violin classes, been playing since I could hold a violin at the college my 11th grade year. I got out of so many classes that I should have had the truancy on me, but I was attending college or teaching a class too, and my grades never slipped below a butt in any class at any point in HS, so they had nothing on me. High school sucked, and I never wish to relive the nightmare the teachers, staff, and admins put me through again. The kids were just average, love to hate them, hate to love them type thing. It was the adults that made it the worst, not the teens, though they weren't much better at times. Story 14. In the UK, there was an organization that sold seminars to schools that were supposed to teach kids about the type of learner they are, visual, auditory, or kinetic. They would turn up and spend a 2-hour assembly teaching the kids all about how some of them should record their notes so they would take them in better, or how they should write thing out again and again if they were visual learners, etc. But it was basically all complete crap. Pseudoscience like those Briggs-Myers personality tests. They made it up based on cursory readings of actual academic papers, then built a whole rigid system of rules and tips. The first clue was how they seemed to be able to sort people into their learning group with just 1 or 2 questions, when really something like that, if it was legit, would likely need a session with a psychologist to determine. The second clue was my physics teacher burying his head in his hands and grimacing the whole time. He was a published academic who started teaching in schools to ease into retirement. I asked him about it, and he said he begged the principal not to book them because he knew it was made up. The principal decided to do it anyway because all the other schools had already done it, and what harm could it do? Story 15. High school science class in the 90s. I had a teacher that was full of himself. Never the wrong type of person. He said that our vision was only good for about 2 miles, and you couldn't see beyond that. He used the ocean as an example. He said when you watch a boat drive away from you, it disappears about 2 miles out because your vision is gone. He said our body has limitations, and our eyes are just one example. Everyone was mumbling and people were looking out the window, and some speaking up saying things like, "Yeah, it's true, I've seen ships just disappear and always wondered why." I started laughing and he asked, "Mr. X, is there something so funny you need to share the class?" I was a typical smart-ass teen who talked back, etc. I said, "Well, yeah. If our vision is shot at 2 miles, how can we see the moon and stars? Or airplanes?" I was still laughing, then said, "The reason we can't see ships after a while is because of the curvature of the Earth." He didn't like me at all and kicked me out for disrespecting him. We didn't have Google, so we could have proof, but anyone with a brain should know that was false. Alright folks, that's a wrap. If you like this, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your those in the comment below.